Okay, so you're sipping your coffee, your earbuds are in, and you're ready for the day's first call. You've studied the prospect's LinkedIn profile, you've prepared your questions, you've even rehearsed your opener, you hit the button, and for 20 minutes, everything clicks. And then comes a lull. You ask about next steps. You hear crickets, radio silence. Hey, I did a little research the other day, and I was wondering, what was the biggest sales challenge being discussed over the past 7 days? And here's what came back to me. Number one, getting leads to respond. And number two, which really relates to number one, was bridging buyer indecision. So here we are today to talk about that. Welcome to the Sales Insights Podcast. I'm Frank Gustafson, your host, and today we're going to try to help solve that biggest sales challenge out there. This may feel a little different from previous episodes. I've always used an outline, but today I wrote out a bit of a narrative to illustrate 5 key points to help us resolve that huge problem in sales today. So if it's looking like maybe I'm reading a little bit, well, maybe I am. Anyways, here we go. Buckle up. Ghosting. Ghosting is not some mythical curse. It's a signal that somewhere in the conversation, things went off course. And today, I want to walk through what that call might look like when it goes right, from the moment that you say hello to that critical see you next time. No bullet point checklist, just a story. Maybe it's your story of a single power conversation. So first of the 5 steps is it's about setting the table. It's 9:30. You greet your prospect, Laura, with warmth and charm. Before diving into product specs, you pause and you say, hey, Laura, before we get started today, I'd like to make sure that we both know where we're headed. By the end of our time, we'll decide if tackling your hiring challenges together might make sense. And then if so, we'll agree on next steps. How does that sound? Here's the deal. At that moment, you've done something that the vast majority of sales reps skip. You've set a mutual roadmap. Laura leans in. She knows what's coming. There's no surprises. There's no awkward silence. And when you ask about the follow-up, this simple scene setting that you've done shifts the entire tone. It feels collaborative, not like you're reading from a script. That's kind of ironic, huh? So number one is begin with a mutual roadmap. Next, let's focus on illuminating the real why. So Laura describes her staffing headaches, open roles lingering for months. You resist the urge to jump in with your features and your benefits. Instead, you guide her into painting out the full picture. Maybe you say something like, tell me what extra headcount delays cost you last quarter. There's a pause. About $120,000 in missed revenue, she admits. Now you're past that surface chatter. You've uncovered real stakes. Her team's morale has dipped. Projects have stalled, and her reputation is on the line. Laura spells out the numbers. When she does that, she owns the problem. You're no longer selling software. You're offering a lifeline to revenue that she's already lost. And that sense of ownership is the spark that keeps her engaged. The third step is listening for signals. So the call flows on. Laura mentioned in passing that the board is getting impatient. That single word, impatient, is your red flag. You stop mid-question. Laura, you mentioned the board's impatience. What's driving that pressure? Silence stretches for 2 seconds, and then Laura leans forward and describes a looming investor meeting where she must justify every hiring dollar. You listen, you really listen, and she talks through her concerns. You don't scribble down your next pitch. You mirror back her words. It sounds like you're missing these hires could put your next funding round at risk. That phrase hangs in the air. When prospects feel like they're genuinely heard, ghosting becomes virtually impossible. They're invested emotionally at that very moment. The fourth part here is weaving in sharp questions. Laura's scenario is clear. Stalled hires, lost revenue, board pressure. Now you pivot with precision. Instead of saying, hey, what else is on your mind? You might say, hey, if you could solve just one of those issues in the next quarter, which one would move the needle the most for your team and why? She pauses and then she zeroes in on speed to hire. She paints a quick vision about closing roles within 3 weeks instead of 3 months, and that vision is gold. You lean in. You say, imagine closing those roles in 3 weeks. What would it look like in terms of customer delivery and team bandwidth? Each question threads directly from her own words. You're co-creating, you're co-authoring the solution. You're not, this is not some generic fix. That partnership dynamic keeps the conversation alive. And Laura isn't just listening to you, she's crafting the outcome with you. The final step is sealing the next step. Your call clock ticks towards zero. You've mapped the discussion. You've uncovered real pain. You've painted a clear what if future. Now comes the decision moment. Next steps. You don't drop some vague, oh, hey, let's talk again. Instead, you make a specific offer. Laura, we've unpacked what a 3-week sales cycle could do to your Q4 targets. I'd like to walk you through exactly how our platform drives that speed. Can we lock in 30 minutes for a demo next Wednesday at either 10 or maybe Friday at 2? Which one works best for you? 2 options, a calendar handoff. You've taken ownership of scheduling, and Laura must choose or voice some obstacle on the spot. If she hesitates, your answer is right there. Is there something that you need to hear or see before committing to a demo? Boom, you catch concerns before they go unspoken. No ghosting here. So why does this matter? Well, here's the truth. Every day, your pipeline has gaps. These gaps are where prospects bail. But when you set a clear agenda, when you probe for the real stakes, when you listen for signaling words, emotional words, when you tailor every question, and when you lock in next steps, you don't just reduce ghosting, you build momentum, and you transform each call from one-off pitches to partnerships. Hey, I'm not promising you zero ghosting. That is totally unrealistic. But what I will tell you is this: when your prospect feels seen, when they feel heard, when they feel guided, they stick around, they show up, and they stay committed. So your story in all of this starts now. Tomorrow, be the rep that opens with a mutual roadmap. Be the one who listens for those emotionally charged words like impatient or critical, and then you lean in. Be the one who asks which outcome matters most, and then secure a firm next step. Do it 3 times in a row, and notice the difference in your calendar. This isn't some rigid checklist. It's a narrative. It's a co-development on every single prospect. The more you practice, the more natural it's going to feel, and the fewer silent phone lines you're going to face. Look, you got this. Now get out there and resign yourself to not being part of the biggest sales challenge being discussed over the last 7 days. Weave these 5 valuable techniques into every conversation until it becomes habit. That's it. Hey, thanks for joining me here today on the Sales Performance Insights podcast. If today's episode helped you rethink your next sales call, share this with a colleague and leave us a comment, maybe with your biggest takeaway. If you have not yet, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my Sales Performance Insights newsletter on LinkedIn. It comes out once a week. If you decide you hate it, you can always unsubscribe, right? I'm Frank Gustafson. Remember, ghosting isn't prospecting voodoo. It's a conversation that you can steer. You keep guiding, you keep listening, and you keep moving deals forward. And as always, no one ever got fired for improving sales performance. Hey, I'll see you next time.